The Pit Press Podcast.
Get a chance to see Ehrlicher, the linebacker, who they say has the potential to be the best defensive player they've ever had in New Mexico.
Looking down the middle, throwing into coverage, and it's picked off by New Mexico. Hear the no, but Christian Washington says yes, yes, yes! Christian Washington! I don't need to take a knee. I want 6! Touchdown, New Mexico! And Kendrick back through the air where he struggled.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Podcast. My name is Ryan Tamori. And as always, I got to give a shout out to Eric Malton, my business partner in this endeavor. As I always say, it's his birthday and he's going to Vegas. So happy birthday, Eric. As always, I'm joined by the voice of Western New Mexico, the Western New Mexico Mustangs, and a Lobo fan since 1970, Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How about you? Thanks again for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to a home football game in person. I can tell you that. Our guest to help us break down the UNM football home opener this Saturday at 6:02 at University Stadium. You can catch that game on the Mountain West Network. Jeff Symbieta is on the call, and as always, Jeff Symbieta, George Carter, and as always on Lobo Radio Network, 770 KKOB, the flagship station in Albuquerque, Rob Portnoy, Dontrell Moore, and then this gentleman, the sideline reporter. He was a quarterback for UNM in the mid-'80s, 1985, 1986. He also does pre-halftime and post game with JJ Buck on 770. I almost said the sports animal there. He's also a longtime head coach, coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed getting to finally meet him and know him because I heard a lot about him, and he had some good stories about when he was coach at the Tennessee Titans. His name is Mr. Ned James. Ned, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure to be on your show.
We appreciate it. Quickly, right off the bat, what was any positives that you can rip out from the UNM 52-10 loss to open the season at A&M, Texas A&M?
Well, the one positive was I thought they were really critical of the offensive line going into the season, in the fall camp, and going into this game. But it showed that the offensive line isn't as in bad a shape as maybe a lot of people might have thought it would be, and they handled themselves pretty well with that really good defensive front that Texas A&M has. That was the positive. I knew they would be able to run the ball. I knew they would be able to, manufacture a little bit of offense. I was expecting to see something on defense. We don't have the Pac-12 killer here, Rocky Long, anymore. San Diego State, he figuratively and literally killed the Pac-12 by beating those teams when he was at San Diego State as the head coach. As the defensive coordinator here at New Mexico for the last 3 years, now he's at Syracuse. I was interested to see if the defense could hold up against that formidable, highest, the New York Yankees of the payroll of college football, Texas A&M team offense and defense. I mean, let's be realistic. You want quality, you got to pay for quality. And so these guys, they've got all those 5-star guys over there, but they had to pay for them. Their NIL deals are probably the best in college football, and so it showed with that with the talent that they had over there. But I was curious to see how we would handle that. Bobby Petrino, Mr. Please get off my motorcycle before the police show up. Petrino playing offensive coordinator for Texas A&M. He did a really good job with the offense because he knew exactly where the weaknesses were. As he really attacked that secondary. It's a young secondary. It's an athletic secondary. They're going to get better as the year goes on. But that's where I guess the Achilles heel was, and maybe the head coach maybe kind of showed him a little bit of favor because he coaches back there and he's a secondary guy. But I thought the offensive line played well. Dylan Hopkins, a lot of people like Dylan Hopkins. I got to still see a little bit more with him. We've got to start seeing some guys make some plays from the skill position. The running back looked promising. But as we get going along here, we got to see some production. There's flashes, but we still got to start seeing some results here.
Ned, this week you would expect to see those results. It's an opponent that's not Texas A&M, Tennessee Tech. Danny Gonzalez said this at the press conference the other day. They're a fast-paced offense. He doesn't know that much about them. But this is an opponent. Remember, New Mexico's lost 10 straight. They need a win, and this is an opponent that seems tailor-made for the moments that you say you need to see more from Dylan Hopkins. He did look in the throws that he made. He looked like he had poise in the pocket. It's been hard to keep a Lobo quarterback upright the last couple of years. So this should be the kind of game New Mexico needs a win, and a clear win, I think, going into the New Mexico State game.
Yeah, people see these FCS schools and they think right away, okay, this is, you got to chalk this up as a win. But, there's no gimmies now. So you got to be ready. These FCS teams will come in here and beat you, especially those ones down in Texas. Now, this is Tennessee Tech. This is East Tennessee. This is where Dylan Hopkins is from. Dylan Hopkins is from East Tennessee. Played for Marysville High School, won a couple state championships down there in Tennessee. I'm familiar with Tennessee. The backup quarterback, DC Tapscott, is from the same area that my house is in Franklin, Tennessee. And he's here now. So there's a lot of Tennessee connection with with Tennessee Tech coming in here. Now, with that being said, they got whipped up pretty good. The quarterback threw 3 picks, 2 for interceptions, ran back for touchdowns against Furman, who's a powerhouse in FCS last week. They're going to come in. They've got a game under their belt. They're going to use that Texas A&M tape. You're going to see a lot of those same plays run at our guys in this game because of the success Texas A&M had. Now, they don't have the same players that Texas A&M has, but they're going to try to use the same schemes to get their guys open and get their run game and pass game going like Texas A&M did. Now, with that being said, when you flip the ball over to the other side, and I always say this, if offense's job is only to run the ball, don't turn it over, punt the dang ball, okay? Defense, you got to stop them on defense, okay? Then you can kick field goals and then, maybe score here or there, and you should win the game. Just as long as you don't turn the ball over and play good, solid, strong special teams. That's what they need to do. They need to put it all together. Now, one of the things I'm going to probably talk about in the pregame show, I haven't decided yet, but I'm curious because people here in Albuquerque really want to know, what are these New Mexico kids doing on this team? This is going to be an opportunity because Hickson's one of the better players, and he's going to be out this game. So Luke Wysong and Andrew Erickson are going to have to show up. Luke Erickson is a preseason all-conference specialist type player. Andrew Erickson is a graduate senior, been here forever. These are the kind of kids that got to show up. Now, they're going to get an opportunity this game, but they've got to make plays. They're playing skilled positions. They're going to get touches. They can't always make just the easy catches where they're throwing it to them, hitting them right in the belly. I've got to see something else from these guys. I got to see something out of Luke. Luke's got all this speed, but can he operate within the parameters of an offense? And that's something that we need to see from him. And that's going to be the determining factor of whether this team goes anywhere this season, if those guys can produce at that skilled position. And I'm expecting to see something from this defense. They're going to have to show some of the Rocky-esque stuff they had at San Diego State. This is the same scheme. It's the same, these are the disciples of Rocky, these defensive coaches, along with Danny. And that's what we're expecting to see this first game to get a warm-up for our little brothers to the south show up here in the following week.
You've been, I think we were talking at the press
I don't think I stuttered when I said our little brothers to the south, did I?
No, you didn't stutter.
Okay.
You didn't.
Somebody must have misunderstood me then.
No, not at all. I've heard it before.
Hey,
I chuckled. I've heard it before.
I chuckled because my degree from UNM sitting back there, even though I was supposed to remain an objective reporter, it's
you're going to find out when it comes to our little brothers to the south, I'm not objective. So, and they understand that. And it's all done with lots of love and fun. Because, we do love them because they are our little brothers to the south.
I love that comment. I'm glad I told him to be candid on this episode. That was off the record. And I don't think we're getting more than that. I was warned about you, Ned. This is a dream come true for me with somebody who speaks the truth. Not that that's truth, but I guess, yeah, they are a little brother to us. What did you make? I think we were talking about it the other day at the press conference. You have been doing the sideline reporting for like 3 or 4 years now. So with everything that you've seen with Danny's offense, is this maybe the most, I know you mentioned the playmakers, but is this the most talented you've seen since Danny's been here?
Not necessarily. Since Danny's been here, there's been some talent here. It's just the operation of everything. The line hasn't been quite as up to speed. There's always a guy missing here and there, but they've had good running backs. They've had good receivers. They haven't had the complete package. I think Bryant Vincent brings, something special offensively, schematically. I think with just the discipline part of the offense, I'm seeing with how they're doing things. I like how he operates, and I like how he puts the packages together. I mean, we're going to see within these next few games, how well that goes. But I always say this, and people get a little beside themselves, but just don't screw it up on offense. Just run it, punt it, and play good special teams, and you should win games on defense. I'm curious to see how this defense plays this year. Yeah, you're going to have some big plays on offense. We're waiting to see the big plays on offense. We've seen the running back who looks a little dynamic, but you're going to need a couple running backs to be dynamic because it's a long season. But we've got to see something from these skilled guys. We've got to see some big plays from outside. Everybody's talking about Luke Weissel. Everybody's talking about DJ Washington. They're talking about Hickson. They're talking about Andrew Erickson. They're talking about, just the talent that they have out there with speed. But we got to start seeing some guys catch some balls and make some plays. And that's what it's all about. It's about making plays. JJ made a comment about it a couple of weeks ago, and the head ball coach at the University of New Mexico kind of called him out about it because he did question whether they had the skills outside with the skilled players to be competitive this year. And hopefully we get to see that this weekend.
I think one of the things you mentioned was Brian Vincent coming in with Dylan Hopkins. There's more continuity there. Coach Gonzalez mentioned Dylan Hopkins has won 19 games. You got an immediate winner there. I don't think the scheme was very good for Miles Kendrick, or Terry Wilson had a hard time. You mentioned the offensive line being a key, and one guy out or one guy out here or there. Coach Gonzalez has mentioned that this offensive line, I was at the press conference last week, he mentioned he thinks it's the strength of the team. And you said that too, that it's a little bit better than it was last year. You mentioned two outside guys, Luke Weissong and Andrew Erickson. Now you said Jeremiah Hickson, I didn't know he was out this week. That's big because he's got size, right? You mentioned playmakers, but you mentioned those guys, Weissong and Erickson, needing to make plays, but they also have to scheme plays for them. They're not a go get a 50-50 guy, right? They're not those kind of receivers. So you mentioned they have to show you something other than just catching passes in the belly. But schematically, what do you think that they might try to do? Now, Weissong has, you mentioned blazing speed. Andrew Erickson, the former Monsanto star, he's no slow poke either. Schematically, what might you see to get them the ball in space and get yards after the catch? Or Hopkins a little bit better passer than Miles Kendrick was. What might we see?
Well, Jeremiah Hickson may or may not play. He's telling me he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to play. It looks like he's a little banged up, and he may play. But even still, if he does play or doesn't play, it doesn't matter. Erickson and Weissong have got to make plays. And this 50-50 stuff, this, hey, spacing and pacing and all that nonsense, no. It's mano-y-mano. It's man coverage. They're only throwing it when it's man coverage. And you got to be able to make plays. It ain't no 50-50 ball. It's either I got the ball or I ain't got the ball. Because there's no such thing as a bad pass. A bad pass is when they don't throw the ball to you. That's a bad pass. If it's coming to you, you got to make plays with it. You got to catch it. You've got to get yards after the catch. You've got to make guys miss you. You've got to run over guys. However, whatever it takes, you got to get it done. And that's what we're talking about from the skill position guys. They got away with a couple push-offs offensively in the game. Texas A&M, and that's all right. I mean, sometimes you're going to get caught, sometimes they're not going to get caught. But you've got to find a way to make plays at the skill position, or else you got to find other guys. And this is their opportunity. This should be their year. We're talking about Dylan Hopkins being this, winner. The guy's won everywhere he's been. He's won in high school. He's won in college. At UAB, he's won bowl games. But he's had guys that made plays. When you put on that UAB tape from last year and you watch him operate, he doesn't have the greatest of talent. He's not as talented as Miles Kendrick and Terry Wilson, but he's got the skins on the wall. He's won some games. And so when you're winning games, you got guys around, you got a supporting cast that helps. He's got a running back that got drafted last year from UAB. His receivers, he threw a lot of 50-50 balls and they went up and got him. There's going to be one-on-one coverage. You got to win. there ain't no two ways about it. You got to win. And, Wysong's got the speed to win. Erickson's got the athleticism to win. They got to win. We can't go another year with just saying, almost. They've got to get it done.
Might we see this week more activity from the UNM tight ends in the passing game? They were involved in the running game a lot last week, and Coach Gonzalez said they did a solid job. Might we see them more involved in the passing game this week?
It just depends. Offense is really usually what they give you. You kind of take what they give you. They're going to look at what Furman did and was successful with. They're gonna know where the weak spots are in the defense. They may attack it that way. The tight ends can help, with blocking and with, they sporadically can get some catches. But, as being a pivotal part of the offense, do we have someone that's a big time tight end? I don't know. I think these guys are going to grow as the season goes along. But is there anyone that just jumps out at you? Connor, he's been here a while. He's had some injuries. He and I can't think of the other one, 85, who I really like, Bruckler. Yeah, Trace. And so those two guys, they're really athletic and guys that can catch the ball and make plays in space. But this team's going to try to run the ball. They're going to try to get some, production in the run game. They're going to try to play some field position and try to get, some teams to make some mistakes. But like I said, when you're trying to get scores, you got to have guys at the skill position making plays. And so we're going to see if, some of these guys that have been around here a while can make those plays. And, everybody's clamoring for New Mexico kids. These New Mexico kids that I see on offense, they got to start making plays.
You mentioned the secondary, and Danny was quoted this week, and Sean Ryder of the Albuquerque Journal wrote this today, that stuff that we usually never do. When you think of at least New Mexico, regardless of what it's been, at least under Danny and Rocky, the secondary kind of looked thin. How do they go about fixing that moving forward?
They're not really thin. They're really athletic defensively in the secondary, in my opinion. It's just that, they're young. They haven't played together. They lost Jarek Reed, who was sort of a vocal leader, a little different guy, but he still was verbal. He's played in the NFL, so, there was some talent back there. These guys, Tavian Coombs is trying to take that lead. Those two safeties that came in from TCU, been a little disappointed with them, but it's still early. They've got to get some camaraderie going back there with those guys. I think DeArco can add something to him. They're waiting for, some things to happen for him to be able to play. And so the secondary is a work in progress. When you go to practice and you see the athletes back there, you're thinking, God, they should be, doing a little bit better than what they've done. But, they played against a good A&M. The New York Yankees are the payroll of college football, the Texas A&M Aggies. So it was a good test for them. But I expect them to get a little bit better. Noah Pola, he's got to play better back there. He can't keep holding guys. He's a senior. He's a veteran guy from Nebraska, transferring from Nebraska. He's got to play better. The two corners, they were just out there. They didn't really make any plays. They didn't give up anything major. They were really attacking the safety, so expect to see that with Tennessee Tech. They were really taking the slots and running them at those safeties versus man coverage, and that was where we got caught in the bind. And those guys, they're going to play this type of defense. Those guys are going to have to be able to cover. Jarek Reed could cover from that spot. They're going to have to find a way to find a guy and hopefully get DeArco back at some point. Who can run, and Covington can run too, but I think he's a little confused on the defensive scheme. And so they're trying to get him up to speed so he can get out there and add some athletes out there who can make some plays, because they're going to have to be able to make some plays in man coverage, because you're going to get guys running at you every week because you're on an island, and it's a lonely island when you're at safety. Corner, you get help from the middle of the safety sometimes, but it's lonely when you're playing zero coverage and you got guys running from the middle of the field at you, and you're playing safety, and they got a two-way go. They can go in or out. Usually you have the sideline to protect you when you're a corner, but when you're at safety, you don't have no sideline. You just got nothing but field and end zone. So it's a tougher ask when it's man-to-man coverage, but these guys got to start learning how to make plays.
Coach Gonzalez, go ahead, Ryan.
I guess that answered what position is harder to play, corner or safety. So I guess we're good there. That answered it for me.
Coach Gonzalez mentioned the run defense. He thought that the run defense played pretty well against Texas A&M, and he said Jimbo Fisher even complimented him on that. What did you see there as far as the front seven up there in containing the Texas A&M running game? They did pass well. They were very successful there. Maybe the argument is they didn't have to run much because they were so successful in the pass game. But Coach Gonzalez did say he thought his defensive line did a pretty good job against the run game.
Now, here's where I missed a little bit because, I thought they were a little weak up front defensively. But talking to Jerome all summer, he kept saying that these guys are kind of tough. Gabe Lopez is a tough dude now. I'm telling you now, I like his toughness. Now, skill-wise, I didn't see him do a whole lot this first game, but I'm expecting to see some pretty good things. And fans, if they want to come out and see a special guy, come watch Gabe Lopez and just talking to him. He's a good dude. But, he adds toughness to that defensive front. And those guys are a little bit tougher this year than they were last year even. And that may explain why they played tougher, because they played better in the game than I thought they would play, watching them in practice all week. But I'm going to wait and see with this group. Coach Jerome really likes their toughness. So, we're coming down the road here, we're going to have some teams that we're going to have to, show our grit against. And I'm waiting to see how they do then. For now, but keep your eye on this Gabriel Lopez. And I'm talking about not just the defensive line toughness, the defense toughness and team toughness is what I think this Gabriel Lopez brings. And I think New Mexico will be proud of him once they get out and check him out.
As approaching it as a head coach, I've thought about it. It's a little weird. You go to Texas A&M, then you get Texas Tech, then you get your biggest rival, the little brothers from down south. How would you, if you're Danny Gonzalez, how would you approach it? Because I feel like we kind of sort of know the outcomes as Lobo fan or people that are familiar with the program and the schedule this year. You're like, yeah, okay, they're going to go to Texas A&M. 99% chance they're not going to win. They should come back and knock the blocks off Tennessee Tech. And then you have New Mexico State. What would your approach? How would you be, trying to keep your kids motivated through these first 2 weeks?
Well, you play every game to win the game. To the front. You don't necessarily practice to lose the game. So you even practice to try to beat Texas A&M. So I don't think his preparation has changed in any way from one game to the next. Sure, the expectations are to win this game, but Tennessee Tech thinks they can come in here and win. So, you just have to prepare and have the guys understand that every game, it's just one game at a time. I don't think he necessarily has talked much about, the guys that we have to play that are coming up from the South. They don't really mention that game. They're trying to get through this next game because you're going to have a lot of players who believe maybe that they think they're pretty good because they think they did all right in a 52-10 game. When I myself would think that as a player you always think that you're just as good as the next man, so you don't necessarily think that you should be getting beat 52-10 and somebody else that got beat 52-10. But he has to keep them humble and keep them knowing that they've got to work. And I thought Coach Bryant really did that with the offense because he was really getting after them this week in practice. And you got to do that. You got to keep guys humble. You got to keep guys hungry. They've got to know that every win you have to bite, scratch, claw to get a win. Doesn't matter who it's against. I don't think you change your temperament and your game plan based on who the opponent is. You just go out and you have to play as hard as you can every week, and you have to fight for every yard.
You mentioned changing cultures of a football team, and we saw Deion Sanders change the culture. I talked to Landrick Brody last night. I've got West Mesa and Albuquerque High tonight. He talked about changing the culture at West Mesa. When you have a quarterback like his son, that helps. Now you've got Tennessee Tech, then you've got New Mexico State, and you've got UMass on the road. One game at a time. How important, though, is it for the Lobos, New Mexico, to at least get one win? And we're always talking about crowds. I would be surprised if they get 10 to 12,000 this week. But with a good performance, maybe a solid one, does that maybe to have the turnstiles maybe getting 25 to 30,000 next week against New Mexico State?
Yeah, it's important. It's important that they you still have to take it one game at a time. And I know people are trying to package games and say, hey, we need fans and you got to do this. But it's always going to always be one game at a time. And it's tough, to try to say, hey, we've got to be 3-1, when we get through these first 4 games and then, we go into conference play and then here's how it's going to look and here's how it's going to shape up, because you get injuries. You get guys who, are in school or have personal issues or what have you. So I'm expecting them to come around at some point. But I don't know. I don't think Danny necessarily kind of goes into meetings and tells guys, hey, this first quarter of the season, we've got to get it done. I just think they really take it one game at a time. I like that approach better because you never know who's going to be in. Guys, sometimes guys play good in games. Sometimes guys look good in practice and terrible in games, and then you got to replace them. And so they're just trying to formulate their team. You're just getting ready to see who the playmakers are now. There really isn't any playmakers because you only scored 10 points. And so you've got to figure out what you're going to be on offense, defense. You haven't stopped anybody yet. I mean, so what? Tennessee Tech's coming in here. You gave up a 52er last week. So, yeah, they played okay against the run. Okay, what's going to happen now when a team like Tennessee Tech scores on you? What are you going to do? Are you going to say, oh, man, we must not be really that good because they scored? So there's a lot of things that go into playing these games. That's why I love this sport. It's a week-to-week sport. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You're still going to have to go out there and compete and be challenged and challenge that team in order for you to be successful.
One quick comment, I'll turn it over to Ryan. Eventually, Coach, Coach Gonzalez has said, we've got a swing in our hammer. We've got twitchy athletes. We believe we're better. We've heard the message. I've heard it, 3 or 4 times. And a likable guy. I don't know who doesn't like him. He's a hard guy not to like. But eventually, you've got to win some games. You've got to win. You're a team that's 2-10, coming off you're on a 10-game losing streak. And I would think starting this week, and again, a lot of things you mentioned, Ned. Tennessee Tech's coming in here thinking they can win too. They're looking at it as a win. So is New Mexico State. So is UMass. But eventually, you've got to string some wins together if that football culture has indeed changed.
Right, and that's what the community is expecting. The community is expecting 3 straight wins. There's no question, and I told Danny earlier this year because we got a bunch of guys coming in town that played with me because Terrence Mathis is going into the Hall of Fame. In our game against New Mexico State in 2 weeks here. And so a lot of the guys that we played with are coming in for that game. And that's one game you cannot lose at the house, because especially when you got the boys in town, because it's an alumni weekend. That's the game that they don't want. Now, what's difficult in the New Mexico State game, particularly here at UNM, because it was my problem, the out-of-state guys. It's not that big of a game for us. And I have to – I'm sorry to admit it, but being from Los Angeles – guys from Texas, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Philly, wherever, we don't get as up for the game as the local guys do. The New Mexico and Dontrell Moore had me cracking up laughing because he would say he always hated the out-of-state guys come the New Mexico State game because they just don't get up. Now they'll get up for the Texas A&M game. Out-of-state guys will get up for conference games, but the New Mexico State game, not really that big a deal for us because they're still our little brothers to the south, in our opinion.
What do you know about Tennessee Tech, if anything, right now?
Well, Brandon Blackman, who was the receivers coach here last year, is their secondary coach. Brandon, I like Brandon, nice guy. He was a DB guy. They had him coaching receivers, so that right there tells you they didn't really have a whole lot of concern with offense. Now all of a sudden, the emphasis is on the offense. But, so it's just one of those things where at Tennessee Tech, they're, a typical middle of the pack FCS school. East Tennessee, I know a little bit about them because I lived in Tennessee for a while. So, but other than that, I mean, they're going to come in here. They're going to try to spread the ball around. They're going to try to run. They're going to try to do the same. They're going to try to run the same offense similar to what Texas A&M ran. Their defense is going to be similar to what Texas A&M did defensively. They just don't have the same players. And that's what it's all about. It's about players making plays. We're going to see if our guys can make plays on offense. That's what I'm more curious to see. I don't really think offense is that big a deal. I don't care as much. Even though I was a quarterback, I like to see offense. I like to see, big play making guys. I'm waiting to see who those guys are going to be. A lot of people think it's Jeremiah Hickson. A lot of people think it's Ja'Cory, the running back. They think it's Dylan Hopkins. But we got to see that 400-yard passing game from Dylan Hopkins. We got to see that 150, 200-yard rushing game from Ja'Cory. We got to see Hickson. We got to see him go for 180, 200 yards of receiving in a game, 11 catches, something like that. Somebody's got to explode some way, somehow, offensively. And then we just got to play good defense and great special teams, and then that'll be a successful season.
Ed, do you have anything else?
I don't. I've actually got to wrap it up here. I've got somebody coming to a little repair job. But Ned, man, brother, it's always entertaining. I don't think it's ever not been entertaining anytime we've been on the air together, man. It's always entertaining.
Hey, anytime for you, Ed. You know that, brother.
Oh, yeah, man. We go back a long way, bro. A long way.
Much appreciated. Ed Nunez, the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs and a Lobo fan since 1970. And you can catch him as a sideline reporter on 770 this weekend. And he's former UNM quarterback. Ned James. Ned, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming and breaking down post Texas A&M and looking ahead to Tennessee Tech. We're definitely going to bug you down the road during the season.
Anytime, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
appreciate
Ned.
it.
Talk to you soon, brother. All right, man.
Talk to you.